Good afternoon to all our participants today. We're so happy to have you with us. We may begin. I think more than enough people have made it into the room. My name is Noni Kumalo, and I am your host for this afternoon. And I'm super delighted to say that we've got a stellar speaker list joining us today, and we're going to learn so much about all the fantastic work that they're getting up to. Just to get a little bit of some house rules out of the way, if you are following the conversation and you would like to share it on your social media pages, please use the following hashtags: UrbanFest 2020, jamlab Meetup, as well as Reimagining Journalism. A friendly reminder as well that we're going to have quite a number of faces on our screen. So if you do want to focus on the person who's speaking or any of the performances that we have this afternoon, please make sure that you pin the screen. So you'll find 3 little dots at the top of the person who's speaking or performing. Just make sure you click on that. You pin the screen, and that will ensure that you focus on the person speaking or performing and not everybody else that is joining us this afternoon. Another friendly reminder to please participate in the conversation in our chat box below. If you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to ask, and if you have any comments to share with them as well, please do likewise. And this is our first session for the month. If you would like to register for more sessions going forward, please make sure that you head on over to urbanfestival.co. Again, that is urbanfestival.co. Super excited. I'm seeing some more faces coming up over here, but I see Akani, I see Gerald as well. So I hope you guys truly enjoyed today's session. So before we get into today's session, we've got a little bit of some entertainment for you. And we're actually going to be starting it off with Emma Manye. What seemed and what started in 2009 as just a mere stress reliever has actually helped Emma become a poetry firebrand. Now, Emma has had the great privilege of performing across international stages, schools, corporates, national TV, as well as radio. And I must say, the list goes on for this phenomenal woman. And the poem that is going to be playing today from her is titled The Unscripted Ones.
The unknown says, our confidence is naive. Compromise. Stick to the tried and tested. Your passion is aggressive, knowing that we are coming for everything, marching forwards in numbers, in ones and zeros. The past has no leverage on us. The present expected us to stand still, but time ticked our presence, with the future inscribing us into history's foundation, calling us by our names, including the clicks in our names and clicking of our fingers. Once not born with silver spoons in their mouths, are now makers of the spoon and benders thereof, came to this earth with answers clenched in fist, unclenching fist to be the answer. Ours is not a race to come first or be first, but to influence and impact. Us, energy injectors, conductors of creativity, dancers with the rain, proverbs for our posterity, signaling the speed of ideas, implanting innovation, setting standards a tradition. We are outliers, the avant-garde, belonging to secrets whispered in spaces unseen for fear of our splendor. We are resolutely spewing out stagnation, a slow poison for the norm, perplexing conformity. We're not taking up space only to be muted at the table, not just conduits between what should be and is, not just bodies trading into uncharted public realms, but we are tomorrow's tools, the manifestation of ideals unscripted, leaning on the reassurance of the rising of the sun the next day. Let he without foresight cast the first doubt, whilst we visionaries converge at Urban Festival 2020. Welcome.
Absolutely phenomenal. And that was
from
Emma Mabia. What powerful words she says. And from one phenomenal young woman to another, we have a live performance from Tasha Hendricks, who not only is a singer, she's a sound engineer, she's a music producer, and she's a video editor all in one. I don't even think triple threat even begins to describe what talent Tasha is. So without any further ado, Tasha, take it over.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm fairly new to this virtual way of doing things, so Please bear with me, the nerves are high. The first song I'm doing is called Lean On, one of my personal favorites. Enjoy, that's all I'm gonna say. I want you to think about who got you. I know that it goes so hard, days ain't the same, but every day's a start. Mama always told me keep on going when it's hard. Know that there's a struggle, never taking it too hard. Tell me who you lean on, you know we get better when it seems wrong. Ay. Tell me who you lean on, you know we get better when it seems wrong. Ay. I know that it goes so hard, days ain't the same, but every day's a start. Mama always told me keep on going when it's hard. Know that there's a struggle, never taking it too hard. Tell me who you lean on, you know it get better when it seems wrong. Ay. Tell me who you lean on, you know it get better when it seems wrong. I find myself in the rain once again. We can never change when remaining the same. Couple bad habits got me hooked like a chain. Couple rag gadgets got me hooked in the brain. Trying to give it all in time is all I got. Even through the fall we climb until we stop. Reaching for the top with no drop top, but we hop blocks. I ain't talking hopscotch, man, I'm talking top knot mentalities. Never let the negativity handle me. I know that better days are coming. Keep on running, keep on stunning if you got a dream. No, it's easier to say than doing what it means. Won't you tell me who you lean on? You know it get better when it seems wrong. Ay. Tell me who you lean on. You know it get better when it seems wrong. Yeah. I know that it goes so hard. Days ain't the same, but every day's a start. Mama always told me keep on going when it's hard. Never taking it to. Could I be stress-free like the younger days when we only worry about the hour we got left to play? Now the clock is ticking and the pressure only escalate. I be feeling closer next, I feel the step away. But don't be lose your faith, my nigga, just be strong. Don't you lose your faith, my sister, just hold on. Cause we replicate what's in our mind, emancipate what's in our prime. Feel away until we find, ignore what's in front of us. Being different is harder than fitting in. Don't compare the life you're living in. And being different is harder than fitting in. Don't compare the life you're living in. I know that it goes so hard. Days ain't the same, but every day's a start. Mama always told me keep on going when it's hard. Know that there's a struggle, never taking it too hard. Tell me who you lean on. You know it get better when it. Tell me who you lean on. You know it get better when it seems wrong. Yeah. I know that it goes so hard. Days ain't the same, but every day's a start. Mama always told me keep on going when it's hard. Know that there's a struggle, never taking it too hard. Tell me who you lean on. You know it get better when it seems wrong. Hey. Tell me who you lean on. You know it get better when it seems wrong. Thank you guys. That was just the first one. The nerves were kind of shaky. So
there were no nerves whatsoever. You were brilliant.
Thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. The next song is called, is it the next song? Okay, I'm ready. It's called I Can't Breathe. Considering 2020, I'm sure you guys know where this is headed. Thank you. Yeah. If you feel any way about the system, this song is for you. Yeah. Who wrote our history when every single one of us were puppets to the man who be living to have fun with us? Whip through our skin, God, look at what they done to us. Wanna see you take your own, so they leave the gun with us. Leave us with the angel dust, lead us to destructiveness. Fighting for our people while leaders get apocalypse. Poverty and pain while they working on a rocket trip. Washing all our brains, information that they stock it with. News, never give the real, only give us what they choose. Tell them how we feel, never give us what we're due. Told us we were free, but we're living to be used. Making others paper, knowing we got vision too. Trying to change the world, man, is ignorance a choice? In this day of information, gotta know you have a voice. Say it how it is, every day our men get killed, while the system's steady making sure they cover up the guilt. I can't breathe, living in the same way. I can't breathe, living in the same pain. I can't breathe, Lord, you know we need change. I can't breathe. I can't breathe, living in the same way. I can't breathe, living in the same pain. I can't breathe, Lord, you know we need change. Yeah. 2020, what a year of resignation. To really process information, there's a rise in conspiracies, rise in abilities. Yeah, the people got some questions, then some answers that we need, like how the numbers always rising with no proof, how they clearly see our hands rise so they shoot. Now I ain't saying every white man is the same, but if you ain't speaking, then you in the same lane, cause every bit of silence is another bit of violence. Every peace march gotta turn into a riot. Man, the system better know the black man is tired. Tell them, are we living or are we just surviving? Things ain't really clear, but I know there is a way. So speak your peace, free your mind, get your way. Speak your peace, free your mind, get your way. Get your way. I can't breathe, living in the same way. I can't breathe, living in the same pain. I can't breathe, Lord, you know we need change. I can't breathe. I can't breathe, living in the same way. I can't breathe, living in the same pain. I can't breathe, Lord, you know we need change. I can't breathe. That song is very dear to my heart. Thank you for listening. Power to the people. You have a voice. Use it. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Geez, Tash, what a talent. You had a lot of our speakers and our participants just bobbing their heads to some of your sounds. So well done. What a fantastic performance. And we'll hear again from you at the end of the show. So if you're waiting for some more Tasha, please make sure you tune in to the rest of the session and you'll be able to hear this remarkable talent. So let's get into the name of the game for today. You might be asking yourself, what is the Urban JAM Café? So these are weekly conversations that we're going to be having for the month of October on the influential role that the Civic has played in the media space. And today's topic is called Reimagining Public Opinion and Satire. And, you know, as a South African, some of, you know, the names that pop up to me are definitely your Trevor Noahs, your Coconut Cals, your, you know, Chester Missing and Zapir as well. And as much as we know that, you know, satire might not necessarily solve some of our political issues that we face, but it is indeed a powerful tool to undermine propaganda, as well as to expose the abuse of power that most of our governments actually have. So we're very excited to have everybody here today. We ask kindly that you also mute your mics while our speakers are on. I know they're waiting with bated teeth to be presenting to us what they have in store for us. So we have three of our speakers today, and the first speaker that we're going to have is Stephen Horn, who is a Cape Town-based video editor, director, and producer who's been working in the online video space for over a decade. So he's got tons of experience on his side. And through his Bouncing Biscuit Studios production company, he created satirical news shows, Politically Aware, which has been featured on the likes of the Daily Maverick, on the likes of Afropunk, ITV News UK, and it's also been shown in schools, in universities, as well as government training workshops. So we're dealing with somebody with quite a huge amount of knowledge and quite a huge amount of experience. And we cannot wait what he has in store for us. Stephen Horn, take it over.
Thanks so much, Noni, and thanks very much to Urban Jam Fest for having me. That was a beautiful intro, but I feel quite humbled to be here with the rest of this very luminous panel of amazing satirists from around the continent. And just the other day, I was actually chatting on a panel with for the Shoko Festival in Zimbabwe with one of the ex-colleagues of Magamba, and we have a Magamba today here with Tafadzwa. And I think I joked at the time that the difficulty with these panels about satire is that explaining a joke is a bit like ruining it. But we won't explain jokes today. We'll take it more as you mentioned earlier, just around kind of what we do and what we're trying to achieve. So to start it off, Politically Aware is a youth-focused or youth-feeling, but we also say for the young at heart show that tries to get that market, that segment that of disaffected youth, who we know that the readership of news is kind of gone down, and the elections last year showed that youth voter turnout was significantly lower. And so the show aims to not take the value of the news down and replace it with comedy. So it's a little different from typical late night shows in the US. Perhaps it's more akin to Patriot Act with Hassan Minhaj or John Oliver's Last Week Tonight than the other shows, which are perhaps more focused on the comedy. So we balance out satire, humor with what we consider journalism that we try and do as thoroughly and rigorously as we can and fact check. And we actually do have a team consisting of some award-winning, SAFTA award-winning comics, but then on the other side, also a really incredibly strong team of journalists from various media houses that you will know, both international and local media house experience in the journalist side. And we've been trying to adapt as best we can to this digital realm of working virtually, but typically this kind of content would be written in a physical writer's room. So we've had to adapt as best we can. But let me show you guys a quick clip to give you, perhaps that will better illustrate what we're all about. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Let me do that here.
It's the new YouTube sensation that's making waves across the internet.
This channel is called Politically Aware. I don't know what it is.
Gareth Cliff called it cleverer than Cliff Central.
I didn't say that. That's bullshit.
It's the show that's got the country talking.
But what Politically Aware what?
Internationally acclaimed comedian Louis Sogola said late night news will never be the same.
I've never heard of this before. Get out of here.
Politically Aware, a news kind of show.
Hello and welcome to the first ever Politically Aware election special.
These are a couple of excerpts from across the nation.
To be honest, I don't know how to feel about these elections.
Uncertain, not hopeful.
And I'm very confused.
The voter registration of 18 to 19-year-olds was down, a whopping 47%. With Politically Aware, you can learn while you laugh.
We took a look at Tito Mbowene's budget speech.
The green thing. Make this thing legal. We are borrowing about 1.2 billion rand every day.
We are recapping, dissecting,
and analyzing the news.
South African news, guys.
Nonsense, Zans, Ushubi.
Wait.
So the trailer is a little too long to show in its entirety, and I want to get through some other things, but I did want to show you a little bit about kind of what it looks like, the energy behind the show. And a big part of how it all comes together is, as you would have seen, through editing. So that's how my personal journey led me to this particular format. I also spent some time as a kid in Europe and in France in particular. They have a very strong satirical culture, a kind of esprit that is of freedom of expression comes first. And so you've got your quote, supposedly, it's actually misattributed to Voltaire, that is, I may not like what you say, but I'll prepare to die to defend your right to say it. And I think we take for granted our freedom of expression in South Africa a little bit, and our colleagues, I'm sure, from other neighboring countries will speak to much more difficult places where it's harder to just speak about anything, and we're very grateful that we have the ability to do so in South Africa. And so we want to just take advantage of our freedom of expression and essentially we punch up. We hold government to account. We know there are elected officials, and so we hold them to the highest standard. And so as an example of that, we recently did an episode about the ANC's personal payment extravaganza. Let me switch back to screen sharing. How am I doing on time, Nani?
Stephen, it actually looks like we saved quite some time in the beginning. So we can even push it to about 15 minutes. So if you've got some time, so let's say about 15:05. So let's push it some more. We still have time.
Okay. Cool. Great. So here's our most popular episode to date, presented by comic KG Mokhadi, which doubled our subscriber count and landed up over there on this platform, which we have a few platforms at over 72,000 views. Now, I think I'll just show you the intro to give you a sense of the format.
We make you aware of your week faster than a comrade can send the hawks on his own wife.
The wife of a former minister, Malusi Gigaba, was arrested at home by the Hawks.
Linked to the destruction of a Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon.
This episode is brought to you by a team with no experience in comedy news videos. But we got the tender anyway.
Oh, I don't know who any of them are.
Let's get away. My fellow South Africans, earlier this year, the president announced a 20 billion rand healthcare response fund and then promised us that government officials would be on their best behavior.
We are also committed to make sure that the funds that are dedicated to our coronavirus response are not wasted and that they are not stolen.
A few moments later,
we will take steps to recover all funds that have been stolen.
We all know that corona has been bad for business, but hey, at least a few industries are cashing in. Pineapples, PJs, porn, and PPE procurement.
Several government officials face investigations for alleged corruption linked to COVID-19 protective gear.
So, am I unmuted? Yes. So as you can see, it's a mix of humor, comedy, reporting the facts. And if you watch this video, which is about 10 minutes, you'll get a lot of humor and jokes. And many of them, as you can see, come from editing, sometimes from contrasting what a politician says 1 minute to the next. Those are often quite ironic. And you'll also learn essentially what happened in all the main facts, including, you see, where we differ from typical news is we like to include a little bit of the banter or conversation from social media, the quips and jabs to spice it up. So it's quite spicy, you could say. But you will learn all the key facts around the ANC's personal payment extravaganza, or in other words, the PPE tender scandal that came out in about August or July, or late July, August. So that's sort of what we do in terms of this format. And so to make it clear, we've actually started developing 2 different formats on the channel this year. This is a satirical format with KG called Weekly Aware. And we all joke because it's anything but weekly, but we are currently a self-funded volunteer-run program. And hey, if there's any big funders in the crowd, give us a shout. We are always looking for more resources, and there's a whole plan of action for that behind the scenes. But for the moment, we just do content as and when we can. And the idea with weekly being that these are roughly about a week's worth of news, as opposed to coming out weekly. But to finish, well, I can go a little bit longer, but so that's the one format. And the other format that we've got, as you would have seen from our trailer briefly, and by the way, this is Tyson Gubeni, who has played an integral role in Politically Aware's development. He actually was part of a team with me at the JamLab Journalism and Media Laboratory Accelerator Program at Chimologong, run by Wits last year. And we kind of pushed the program, we pushed our show forward. We got to think a little bit more about the business side and sustainability side. And Tyson's had a massive year. He's with his character Bob O'Connor, and remains very interested and committed to our show throughout. And we're very proud to have been the first platform where he actually premiered Bob O'Connor, the character, which you'll see probably would have seen here. So a really cool crowd of people behind this, and I'm just one of a whole group. And to give you a sense, one of these videos takes hundreds of hours from a team of about 10 people, and of various different skill sets, including videographers, sound mixing, musicians. It's a real orchestra that comes together to create content like this. It isn't just any typical YouTube vlog, for example. Not that those aren't extremely important to society as well, but it's just a different format entirely. And so this was our climate change. I'm just going to show you stills of it. It was our climate change episode that we did last year. We actually did a series on the climate crisis, including we went to get our own footage and shoot protest footage, and interviewed youth protesters from the School Strikes for Climate movement. We were the first show, I think possibly the first media platform, one of the first, ever to give Ayaka Melitafa, video media platform, to give Ayaka Melitafa a platform. She's probably the equivalent of South Africa's Greta Thunberg. So a very prominent voice in the climate change action movement in South Africa. And this series went on to win an award in the USA this year at the University of Boulder, Colorado. And so we have many humorous moments, for example, here with Helen Ziller feeding the Mad Max people, or giving the people of Cape their water. We have a really talented graphics artist called Declan Manka who created this, and he's done a lot of cool work for this show. So as you can see, it's a whole team. And then to finish off, okay, let me show you this clip. Where is it? Here we go. So this is a video that was quite popular earlier this year, sitting on about 30,000 views, which looked at the police violence and brutality that was being perpetrated by soldiers and police, by our security forces in South Africa when they were enforcing the lockdown. And we know that Ramaphosa didn't want this to happen. He took a while for him to condemn the killing of, for example, Collins Khoza, a little bit too long in our opinion. So there's definitely something a little bit that went awry with the way our police handled the lockdown. And so we wanted to criticize that. We wanted to point out the ironies and the hypocrisies, and editing can help you do that effectively. And this sequence is quite powerful and went a bit viral on Twitter.
But more worrying than depriving Karen from her cabinet are the chilling reports of abuse committed by our very own security forces.
This is not a moment for scop and donor. This is not a moment for skeet and donor. This is a moment to be supportive to our people. When they see you, they see kindness of the state of South Africa.
The military.
So, can you all hear the sound? Noni, is the sound? I don't know if I did the right share with the sound. Yes, I think I did. Let me know if there's any technical issues. But that was a piece that contrasted. Let me just check. That contrasted what was being said with what was happening on the ground, and I think that's one of the key things that we do on the show. And finally, I know I'm out of time, but I have 1 minute left, and so I have very good news in that we have a new episode out that launched today. Those of you who follow us already will know we take a little long to to produce content. It's our Achilles heel, but it's because we put so much time and love and effort into these videos. But we are working to get them out more regularly. But here today, you're very lucky to be able to see one that's gone fresh off the press, and it's just hit the channel. So please do jump onto @politically_aware or search politically aware. You see it's the spelling AWEH on YouTube or on any social media platform. And so this is a 1-minute trailer for our episode that landed today about the state of the arts in South Africa in the wake of lockdown and coronavirus.
Imagine your lockdown without these two. Or without this jam. Jerusalem. Without our talented artists, this lockdown would have been a whole lot worse.
What could be worse than that?
The South African culture and creative industry is one of the sectors that will be hardest hit by the coronavirus.
All of my work was immediately cancelled, which was very intense.
Musicians blocked the National Road. Pandemonium ensued.
The artist sector is like the wild, wild west. It's one of the most unregulated sectors in the country.
It's time that this department started esteeming us the same way that the global community esteems us.
How do we support an entire sector for about the price of one nkandla? Something just doesn't add up. And even we humanities graduates can tell you that much. Let's get our way.
Thanks everyone, that's me done. I'm very happy to hand it back to Noni, and if you have any questions, I look forward to hearing from you afterwards.
Stephen, fantastic work. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I think the one thing that stood out for me is just how much has actually happened during lockdown. So thank you so much for highlighting some of those things that happened in our country during that time. It was a fantastic presentation. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching. Cool.
All right, cool. So if you are a participant and you're here to listen to our speakers, please feel free to ask them questions as well as to comment in the chat section below. They would definitely love to hear from you. After all of them have spoken, we're definitely going to get into some of your questions, so please feel free. Our next speaker is Masood Kipanya, who is the leading political cartoonist in Tanzania. All right, so his first cartoon appeared in a newspaper in 1989. For years, Masood has worked with a significant number of local and international organizations in simplifying hard text into popular versions. Now, what stood out for me, and he keeps laughing every time I mention this, is just how extraordinary he has become also in terms of his following on social media. I mean, he is amongst the top 5 influencers on social media in his country with a combined following of 2 million followers. So clearly he is doing something very right in Tanzania. Masood? If you could just unmute yourself over there, Masood.
Unmute. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is. Thank you very much, Noni, for having me here. My name is Masood. My name is Ali Masood. That's my official name, but people know me by Masood Kipanya, and Kipanya is not my surname. Kipanya is the Swahili word which means it's a mouse. In fact, if you look at my cartoons, you would be seeing those 2 cartoons, 2 Vipanyas, Dad and the Son. So I work as a political cartoonist in Tanzania, and I'm working for the leading newspaper. But I also work as a radio presenter for the leading radio station, doing a leading morning show in Tanzania. So once again, thank you very much. And mine is not going to be that long, my presentation. But yes, as you said, I started in 1989. And when I got into the game of cartooning, our country, Tanzania, was still in a single-party system. And by that time, we only had 2 newspapers, which one belonged to the government and the other one belonged to the ruling party. So literally, they all belonged to the government. So you could easily tell from the structure that the papers used to run cartoons, but the cartoons were mostly talking about social issues. So any political commentary was about glorifying the system. I officially started as an illustrator for the bi-monthly publication, but the magazine later went on to becoming a monthly tabloid. And we had few pages which featured political issues, but most pages were dominated by the sensational stories. So when the magazine was turning into tabloid, the editor, the chief editor, who was also the owner of the paper, asked if I could do caricature. And basing on my background, because I used to be a very good artist in doing portraits. So when the editor spoke about caricature, it was very easy for me to adjust from illustrations into cartooning. And I'm not so sure, but I think my first cartoon, I did a caricature of the then USSR president, Mikhail Gorbachev. Then I went on doing a lot of other politicians. But at first, people did not take it serious. No, I mean, I'm talking about these cartoons. But when I persisted by contributing to other papers, people started to fall in love with my work, and they were now waiting for my cartoons to see my reaction on different issues that were happening at that particular time. So I'm talking about the 90s here. We didn't have a chance to get feedback from the people. The only feedback that I could get was through physical encounters with cartoon lovers, and also through those letters to editors, as you know, that we didn't have social media at that time. So I continued, and more cartoonists came on board, and finally we established, me with the company that I was working with, we founded a weekly tabloid, which was about cartoons. But unfortunately, the paper didn't last long. We operated for about 2 years, I think. Then it died a natural death. Why? Because one of the owners of the company that I was working with, the owner of the newspaper, wanted to run for an office. So he wanted to become a member of parliament. And I think one of the conditions that he was given was to make sure that they stop publishing the paper. So the paper died, the tabloid died. Then we tried, me with my friends, we tried to register another newspaper, but due to lack of capital, because we were only depending on the sales, so the second paper also died. So I kept on doing some other stuff as a freelance cartoonist. For the past 30 years of my service to the nation, I've made cartoons in the last 6 years of the second regime, but I also did cartoons for the 10 years of the third regime and the 10 years of the fourth, and now I've just covered about 5 years of the fifth regime. But if you ask me when was the best time of my work, I would say that now is the best time of my work, but also during the third regime, which was between 1995 to 2005. Now, why am I saying these periods were the best for me? It is because during the third regime, the last, I'm talking about the President Mkapa, he didn't care much about what was being written or said about him. So we were a bit free to do whatever we wanted to do. But also the current regime, that I think it is also one of the best, is also interesting because in terms of infrastructure, the president has tried his best to do a lot that probably was never done by any other regime. So the team that surrounds him wants the whole country to sing the praise songs, which I think it is almost next to impossible. So when some people refuse to sing these songs, the regime they get mad and they try hard to show the good side of the government. So while the radicals also trying to their best to show the bad side of the government. So in between, you get to find people like me who are able now to extract the best cartoon ideas from these fights. But to be honest, my job is just to remind people the importance of taking charge of their lives, because in many countries, politics is regarded as a game of the elder. Young people have always been shunning away from politics, thinking that it is none of their business. But in Tanzania, for example, my cartoons have been serving as a reminder to this young generation that politics is your daily life. The price of the sneakers that you wear may change due to a good or bad politics. That the school you attend may be closed due to bad politics. The club that you go every weekend may be closed due to bad politics. The future that this young generation aspire or desire may be shattered by bad politics. So I'm trying as much as I can to be as a catalyst also of analytical thinking, because I do my cartoons are a bit philosophical. If you have a chance, you'll be able to see some of my cartoons. They're a bit philosophical. Most of them they do not have text, so it is for the readers, a reader to try as much as he or she to come up with a perception, and all the perceptions are okay. So I have managed to create a platform for a lot of people to discuss about their destiny, which is in this case is decided by the politicians. So, but unfortunately now, when I look at myself as a catalyst for analytical thinking, but unfortunately, part of our society is looking at me as the enemy of the state, because they think that I'm being used by opposition, or sometimes by even these other countries. But I'm just a cartoonist, not a terrorist. One more thing that I've learned about through cartooning has been, it is not about how you draw, but it is about what and how do you talk about what you talk about. It shouldn't be about the talent only, but the ability to think so that you can come up with the best cartoon, which can keep people talking and sharing about it. And sometimes I do get messages from my readers, my fans asking, what did you mean by this cartoon? And unfortunately, again, I'm not supposed to say what a certain cartoon means. I think I'll be explaining more through the questions that will be coming to me from our guests. Noni, have I done it enough?
Thanks, Masood. I think we still have quite a bit of time, and I do believe that Gechi has some of your cartoons, especially because they're not in English. For some of us who understand the English language but don't necessarily understand some of the languages in East Africa. So if Gechi can just share some of the cartoons that you have, and maybe just take us through some of them and what they mean and what you were perhaps thinking when you were animating these.
Now you want me to tell you the meaning of this, like this one?
Even if you have to say it in a way in which you only understand, but just to give us a synopsis of what was happening in the pictures.
Okay, I'll give you a tip about like this one. I was talking about the freedom of expression. Here, the person who is standing next to this big snake is a journalist. Now, the fellow journalist is being swallowed by this huge snake. What am I going to do? Next cartoon. Noni.
Yeah, it's moved on. Next.
Yeah, this one also, it's about being suppressed because you are underwater you cannot breathe, and you're being bit by a fish or whatever, a crab, if you open your mouth and cry, you end up dead. So it's also about the freedom of speech. Well, I love this cartoon because the style that I used is more or less like a painting, and this is we all know that when we look at the color of the flags, it's a big nation. This is the United States of America, and this was during the death of George, I think. I've forgotten his name, but America keeps talking about democracy, you know, like forcing other nations to make sure that they practice, you know, democracy. But within their in his or in her backyard, you find people are being abused, you know, the racism, etc. So it's like other animals are laughing at him because he's stuck. I also love this one because you can see there's a pen and a notebook, and I see some red. I don't know if it's a blood or ink, you know, but the pen is broken. The notebook is there, but how are you going to write using, you know, which the pen is broken? So it is also about the freedom of expression. This was about Corona. When at the first when it started, other countries were a bit serious about Corona, but you know, we had to go on with our lives because when you look at the people, especially most of the African countries, you know, people depend on if they want to make money, they have to go out, you know, in the morning and come back in the evening with whatever they have. It's like you have to go out for you to be able to feed your family. So this was about Corona, and yeah, I think that's it. And this one, if you look at the ground, one side is up there and the other side is down here. For the people who will be playing from this side, for them to be able to reach that goal, they have a huge task of climbing, you know, that cliff to get to the other side. So it's about on that level of playing field, yes. Yeah, this is also about, it's about politics. When it's about politics. When you want to, you busy, you've killed your prey, now you want to enjoy, you know, your meat, but now you have vultures, hyenas, etc. They also want it. The vultures that are surrounding this lion, these are the opposition. They keep on, you know, whoever is running the country, they want to enjoy their meal, but at the same time, the vultures, they also want to get a piece of meal. Yeah, the meat. Next. I think we're done. Huh?
Fantastic work. I'm highly impressed that, you know, there's so much that actually goes into it without there being quite minimal words, Masood. So that was absolutely fantastic. We'll speak about a little bit later about how you have 2 million followers, correct?
Okay, no problem.
Fantastic. All right, so then we have our next and final speaker, definitely not least. His name is Tapfadzwa Tsesi, and he's from Magamba. Now, Magamba is Zimbabwe's trailblazing, innovative youth-orientated organization that lauded as one of the 100 sparks of hope by the elders. Magamba runs some of the most disruptive digital platforms on the continent, and its work has been widely featured in global media such as CNN, BBC, and The Guardian. Young people constitute 67.7% of the Zimbabwean population, but their access to the corridors of power is limited to extremely polarized spaces. Magamba thus aims to increase young people's engagement in issues of national importance and to expand access to alternative media. Tafadzwa, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Noni, and thank you so much for that introduction. I would like to greet everyone and thank you so much, colleagues, for the amazing presentations. So Magamba was born at a time of hyperinflation, disillusionment, and political oppression. The network emerged in 2007 and was all about inspiring young people to be part of the change that our country desperately needs. I would say we decided to start using fun and creative tools that speak to young people in a language that they understand, from hip hop to satire, from social media to innovation. And our belief is in a Zimbabwe with a participatory democracy, strong alternative media, a sustainable environment, and a thriving creative economy. And I would say today Magamba Network is one of Zimbabwe's leading creative organizations, and we work on the cutting edge of arts, digital media, activism, and innovation. Magamba's award-winning initiatives include Shoko Festival, and our theme for this year was the Phoenix edition, which is Zimbabwe's longest running festival of urban culture. We also have Moto Republic, which is Zimbabwe's first creative hub, and the weekly political news shows, which include the Week with Comrade Fatso, and some of the pioneering digital media projects, which include Open Pali ZW, which has also replicated some of its initiatives to Open Pali Zambia. And back home, we are also running Open Council Harare, Open Council Marondera, Open Council Mutare, Open Council Masvingo, where we are trying to hold public officials, officials in council work. And the project that I'm currently managing is called the Feed ZW. It's one of Magamba Network young and vibrant initiatives, and we stand on the side of social justice. I'm currently working with a network of young, dedicated reporters from all over Zimbabwe that produce content using their smartphones, and it's mainly to do with telling everyday stories, from the vantage point of their communities. This initiative actually came against the background of media polarization in the country, wherein you'd find that the legacy media is mainly focusing on the main political parties and the main political actors at the expense of young people who constitute a huge demographic of the country's population. So in terms of the narrative that we are trying to push, it's more of a narrative that is youth-driven, a narrative that comes against the backdrop of the regime's viewpoint dominating most of our lives. In terms of the key pillars that we always stand guided by, it's more to do with content that is youth-driven, content that has a community impact, content that speaks to social justice and is creative and innovative. I think it's very important for us to use such platforms to air alternative views, especially in a nation where people have been going through so much from a socio-economic and political point of view. And we then try to bring to the fore everyday voices from everyday people. And these can be your youths, your hustlers, your dreamers, your activists fighting for a better tomorrow. And I would say in the context of satire, it has become a powerful tool to undermine propaganda and expose abuse of power and in social taboos. I actually picked this from the write-up that Noni sent, and I concur with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I want to take you through our work. Just a moment. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, that's great. All right. Is my screen now appearing?
Not yet.
From my side, I can't see anything.
All right. Let me see. All right. Let me share. Is it now appearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So just a moment.
Circumstances and conditions. Live in extraordinary circumstances and conditions. You can't tackle them in a normal way. You need crazy. What's up? Welcome to Motor Republic, the headquarters of Magama Network. We're going to take you on a little tour in TV style. I met outspoken at one of our poetry slams. We kind of battled amongst other poets, and me and him ended up tying, and we had to share the prize. And the prize was a quarter chicken and chips and a book. And so he took the book, and I took the chicken and chips. He was hungry for knowledge. I was hungry for food. And so I think since then we kind of knew, okay, we can work together. And it started off focusing mainly on like live events, so like poetry, hip hop. But then we realized that expression stretched beyond that with young people that wanted to contribute and write. So it kind of expanded to like citizen journalism. So this is the Marachera room, and these are our comrades from Citizens Manifesto. They are working hard to put together a citizens convention that's all about activists coming together and saying, what is our Zimbabwe dream and how do we get there? Yuvos was one of our first funders going back to like 2008, 2009. To take the risk with a very young organization, and thanks to them, it's managed to see us through 10 years strong and growing stronger with all of our initiatives and programs. There's very little civic space in Zim. People are, often afraid to speak their minds because you never know if what you say can get you beaten or arrested. And I think we really saw that, like, last year in November when, we had plans for our 10-year anniversary, but it turned out that the state had even bigger plans for us. They raided our Motor Republic offices here. Soon after that, confiscated all the laptops they could, also charging us with subverting the government. Actually, the raid here happened the day the coup was happening. So we kind of woke up the next day. Some of us had gone into safe houses, woke up the next day to see General on the TV saying this is now on another level. And we're kind of looking at that saying, well, we were being charged with, trying to overthrow a constitutional government, but I think the military have maybe beaten us to it. It's an ongoing battle between, between the bottom and the top, between the citizens and the state. It's an ongoing battle here in Zimbabwe, in Africa, on the continent, globally. And I think it's key that as citizens we keep coming up with creative means to keep civic space open and free, and to be able to hold government to account. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, welcome to the week with me, Comrade Fatso,
And it's been a scary week where we've discovered that our country is full of ghosts, or as Zek like to call them, registered voters, and that ZANU-PF has got your phone number in their contacts list. I think young people are very disillusioned, and we identified that need to kind of come up with creative forms of activism that could reach out to young people, get them involved in being part of the struggle for a new Zimbabwe.
It's not just work. It's not like something you can switch off from, like, and say, okay, now I'm not an activist. The cost has been, I don't have any gray hairs, but just stress, threats of arrests, raids, detentions, you know, the basics of activism 101. But I think the benefits have far outweighed the cost that we've seen so far. It makes it all worth it in the end.
So that was our creative director, Comrade Fato, who also features on the week, and Comrade Outspoken, the two founders of Magamba Network. So earlier, I also mentioned that this year we held Shoko Festival 2020. And what's really interesting about Magamba Network is that we thrive, you know, in times of, difficulties. I remember at some point when Zimbabwe was hit by the cholera, disease, most of the events out there, most of the festivals out there were being asked, not to proceed, but we still found a way of engaging different artists from not only from Zimbabwe, but from South Africa as well. We had Moonchild Sanelli, and we had other artists coming in, socially conscious artists coming in, to sing. And mostly some of these songs speak truth to power. They speak to the everyday realities that are lived by young men and women from diverse communities in Zimbabwe. So this year's festival was a virtual one, but in terms of the creativity behind the festival, and even the program that we had the Bang Bang Comedy Night. We had comedians coming through from Simca Comedy, and really coming up with stellar performances that are a true reflection of what's happening on the ground. And we also had comedians from Bus Stop TV, the likes of Maggie Ravens, Doc Vigela, Tinaye Munya, Alfred Kainga, and King Kandoro, really putting up the best, a top-notch performance that really challenges the status quo. So in terms of, sorry, let me just move that. So in terms of the content that we are currently producing, it's mainly to do with using satire to speak truth to power. Like I mentioned earlier, Zimbabweans are really going through a lot, and sometimes comic relief, it not only comes in a satirical way, but it also empowers them to hold those in power to account. So it's more of then packaging our content in such a way that the everyday Zimbabwean can actually relate and find a way of taking part in that whole national discourse. I'm going to play one of the videos. It's on ANC saying that there is no crisis in Zimbabwe. Yet what's happening on the ground is contrary to what that some of these fellow comrades are saying. From the vantage point of an ordinary citizen, from the vantage point of a ghetto youth, from the vantage point of a vendor, or someone who really goes through so many challenges in Zimbabwe, the situation on the ground is really different from what ANC was saying. So I'm just going to play one of the videos that was produced under Magamba TV, wherein ANC was saying there's no crisis in Zimbabwe.
Dr. Aman. Right. Iwewe, hello. Sure, what was it? Iwewe, okay. Maria Chundoj Gande, Gere, Rubugan Silday.
Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, welcome to another episode of The Week with Comrade Fatso. I know a lot of you are waiting for me to say live from my kitchen, but as you can see, I'm back in studio. Because lockdown has eased up a little bit. It's been another mad week. The ANC delegation jetted into Harare, met ZANU-PF and left again. Deja vu. The Chinese have been farming in the Hwange National Park, and Victor Matemadanda told Ian Kama to go and find a wife. But first, a high-powered ANC delegation flew into Harare this week for another game of whose crisis is it anyway? The delegation featured ANC heavyweights like Ace Magashule and Gwede Mantashe, who are here to find out if there is a crisis or not. Okay, well, we all know that Ace is really here because he's desperate for a break from Brazil, who's really on his back these days about all these petty corruption and tender things. The only problem is that ZANU-PF says there is no crisis. The delegation is not looking for Munu and crisis. Crisis loyal. It is here. According to Sophie Mokwena, the SABC's political editor, the ANC delegation want to discuss with Zimbabwe their concerns. What Sophie and the ANC delegation don't know is that ZANU-PF doesn't have a customer care department. They don't listen to concerns, and they definitely don't take kindly to the views of others. But wait until after he had a little brainstorming meeting. Nana Opus.
Sorry. So I know we have a very short attention span, and also in respect of time, I'm just going to just give a breakdown in terms of some of the content that we are producing. It's not your usual content that you'd find like in the mainstream print or broadcast media, wherein you know that the issue of media capture is real. And what we normally read or see on the only broadcaster, which is the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, is normally not a true reflection of what's happening in the ground. What then we are trying to do as Magamba is, you know, to tell those an everyday reality from the vantage point of you know, ordinary citizens, communities, and really speak truth to power, and also laugh at power. You know, there are certain things that they are doing every now and then, and it's really hard to believe, but this is how we are packaging most of our content. And at the moment, we are in the process of coming up.
Everything is in order. Let me take photos and videos, and this I can show Urama Senyane.
You should. And JZ also.
JZ, I don't think he's worried. After he left the seat,
but you do
that we can give a full report. Where are they?
Oh, you mean?
Yes,
oh, no, yeah, they are here. Come here. Yeah,
the complaint that we're getting is that they are not free, there's no food. So at least if we check the message deck, where, so they are there.
That's false. Look, is there no food in here?
Right there.
Are they not free?
They are free.
Are they not roaming around?
They are.
Are they not in truth?
They are.
So
maybe take pictures.
Yeah, please take pictures. Please take pictures.
They look free. They look free.
They are free. So even when you go back, you should tell them about the.
Yeah, that I saw. Yeah, they are free.
Yes.
They are free.
Yeah, you cannot go beyond the side.
All right.
Yeah, so let's go.
All right. I know it's okay. They are free.
Others could have been here, but you know, everything is well here.
Mm-hmm.
So, where are the other stakeholders?
Because we wanted to see Mommy, Daddy, and children.
Oh, Mommy, Daddy, and children. Yeah. I've been advised.
So in this skit is more to do with, you know, in case for some of you who were following when Ramaphosa sent a special envoy to assess the situation on the ground. Normally, it's not really, I would say, based on the work that we are doing, it's not really a true reflection of what's happening on the ground. So we try to use satire to actually, you know, project the reality on the ground. How am I doing on time, Nani?
I was actually about to jump in and say you're out of time, Tafat. So if you can just quickly wrap it up so that we can get into the Q&A session.
Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this up by saying we are currently in the process of coming up with a school of satire, and so far we've identified 15 participants, and out of the 15, 9 are young women. We hope to see more women who follow the footsteps of Gonyeti Magi and more prominent female satirists, and we are also working on the Africa Satire Network, and it really goes back to our key pillars as Magamba that I mentioned earlier, and we remain resolute in terms of standing on the side of social justice, coming against the backdrop of how most of the regime's viewpoint is dominating most of our lives. Thank you.
Tafatwa, thank you so much, and well done to you and the Magamba team. You're doing fantastic work. Right now, we'd like to open up for some Q&A to our speakers, if they can just show their faces and kindly unmute themselves. We have got a question here from Getty to Stephen that says, great presentation. I'm keen to know whether you face any pressure or risk about actuality and bias in these times when people obsess about fake news, etc. Obviously, you are doing satire, but does it form opinion? Right. Are there rules for any of you? And I think that especially during the pandemic, a lot of fake news were flying around, and in any conference that you're involved with, you're really speaking about fake news across the continent. Stephen?
Thanks so much for that question. Yeah, it's very, very topical and central to how we work and how we think about our content. And so we've actually, you know, we've been very blessed this year to attract some really great journalists to the project. And I don't have a media and journalism training. I trained in video and film production and film and media at UCT. So that's kind of how it's such a team sort of dynamic that I rely on them, and you know, I do the video stuff, but then I rely on the journos and other writers to assist. And so we actually, every episode we do a fact-checking pass, usually with our journalists. So that gives me great peace of mind, because obviously we're conscious of not wanting to spread fake news. But not only that, we're working in a very charged political space in terms of the way we do what we do. It's, you know, and we don't want to get sued for defamation. So yeah, that's important. And in terms of, obviously we're doing satire, does form opinion, 100%. I think that's the thing. Satire means you take an editorial line. So you can't really, so as your viewers would have noticed, there's something different going on when you're watching one of our videos compared to watching ENCA or some other, or SABC, where the goal is to present the facts as objectively as possible. In our show, we still want to do that, and we actually go on location and do location reports, vox pop type situations. We try and fact find. You will see in our new episode we released today, we did a substantial interview with Lebo Mashile, the poet, performer, actress, writer, incredibly talented person who gave us so much of her time. Beautiful interview. And so that's journalism, essentially. The journalism that we're doing is doing that fact finding, but then we blend it with comedy. And we always hope that our audience, we make sure that our audience knows when they're watching comedy or a joke or a gag. And that's really kind of like John Oliver's, you know, when you watch a John Oliver, you don't go, is the whole thing made up? Is it all nonsense? You know when he's telling you facts from his research department and when he's giving you a joke. And there's actually interesting information that's come out around how jokes or humor can help sort of, a fact, I think it's something like a fact which is followed by a joke or vice versa, helps the fact remain in your head better if you've actually, you know, in terms of the presentation. So maybe that's why it's an especially effective medium for communicating information through satire. I think the Magamba people are doing an incredible job in the same vein and spirit, and the same with Kipanya's cartoons. It just makes you think, a different part of your brain lights up. But final thing to close off on this point is obviously there is a lot of risk around factuality and fake news, and so we've considered perhaps as we grow we'll join the press ombud, which means we would actually be more responsible in our reporting than independent newspapers who quit the press ombudsman, so they're no longer accountable for press standards. So yeah, I think that it's just in terms of being responsible editorially, trying to cross-check, get multiple sources, and if you do screw up and make a mistake, you quickly apologize, you rectify it, maybe you add a correction in the description of the video or the top comment, as Vox or other channels do when they make mistakes. Yeah, so I think that's kind of how we handle that. I don't know if I answered that correctly, but
fantastic. I love that answer. I think it goes. And then the next question is for Masood. Masood, it says, with millions of followers, do you feel any burden or perhaps power about influencing voting or non-voting for that matter? And do you have any idea if your work is more urban or rural or neither when it comes to your following? If you can just unmute for us there, Masood.
Yes, sorry. Well, my intention is not to confuse people. So I try as much as I can to encourage people when it comes to voting, for example. I do post most of some of the cartoons. They encourage people, especially young people, to go and vote. So I don't feel powerful because when you talked about the 2 million followers, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, for me, I think it is because I'm trying to answer that question you wanted to ask. For me, I think it is because I post most of the cartoons that are being rejected by the editors, you know. That's why I have a lot of followers. What was the last question again, Noni? Please remind me.
The last question was, and do you have any idea if your work has a more urban or a rural following? Or maybe neither?
When you look at the number of people who have smartphones, obviously most of them are from the urban. But since I also publish on newspapers, so I also get followers from the rural. Yes.
Right, fantastic. Thanks for that, Masood. And perhaps maybe if I can just rope you in quickly on this one, Tafadzwa, and if you can keep it nice and short. Do satirists think of themselves as activists or as journalists? Tafadzwa? All right, I think you might be having some network issues. If perhaps maybe Stephen, if you want to jump on that question, you see yourself as an activist or as a journalist?
Such a good question, and one that we deal with a lot, in particular in the climate space, because we're very committed climate change activists at Politically Aware. We did a massive series on it. It's our biggest project in terms of like sequential videos last year. Which traveled around the world and which are actually used by South Africa's government Department of Environmental Affairs in their climate training workshops. And climate change requires us to actually shift the conversation to a place where it isn't currently in terms of the way it's not being seen as an emergency sufficiently. So when you're so you're trying to report the truth and the facts of the issue, but when the entire world, and this kind of maybe goes in parallel with other issues around racial justice and other things, but the climate one is such a clear-cut case of where we have been called out for being, kind of lefty climate warriors. But, at the end of the day, we turn again to the facts and we look at the scientific report of the UN and the global scientific consensus from the IPCC report says that this is an emergency. We should have disbanded Eskom's coal power stations 20 years ago. Meanwhile, we're phasing them out over the next so many decades. So it's all that kind of thing as like people, so then we've had to kind of become activists, journalists, even though we're trying to report it as objectively as possible.
Sure. Thank you so much for that, Stephen. And maybe just as Tasha Hendricks is getting ready for her last performance, I cannot believe we're 5 minutes to closing, but just to extend my absolute gratitude to our speakers today, Masood, Stephen, and Tafadzwa. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your amazing knowledge. And if you can just quickly, please just peep through some of the comment section there from the chat as well, and just see what some of the people have to say about the work that you guys do and just how influential and inspiring it is. Thank you for all our participants for joining us as well. What a fantastic chat it's been. Please also make sure that you actually register for some of our other talks that are taking place this month on Thursday at the same time. The next one is called Reimagining Our Narratives, and then after that is Reimagining Media and Voices, and then the last one for the month will be Reimagining Policy and Governance. So please make sure you register for those sessions if you want to walk away as inspired as we are today. But for now, if Tasha can just come up and just close over for our session for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This song is called The City Never Sleeps. Yeah. The city never sleeps when we chasing our dreams and we living up to the things that we need. The city never sleeps when we chasing our dreams and we living up to the paper we need. It's a hard knock life and we trying to live it right, trying to stay woke to the creeps in the night. But the city never sleeps when we chasing our dreams, living up to the This ain't no sleep for the wicked, ain't no sleep for the dreamer. We ain't got no lucky ticket, gotta plan schemas. No, I ain't a model, but I keep track of my figures. I don't even give a shit, but we doing bigger. Look into the mirror and I see the real picture. Recognize a world without the people who ain't with ya. Recognize a girl without the things you do for Insta. Living in a world where social media is the business. Figure out your aim like you drawing up a hit list. Clearing out your brain, cause you know you gotta get this. Ain't no other day, and tomorrow ain't promised. See it, then believe it, like the eyes of St. Thomas. You ain't gotta be your own demise, be honest. Save yourself from living up to what you ain't want with. The city never sleep, that don't mean that you should creep way below your own belief, way below your own standards. Look into the future, not the deal that you've been handed. Everything you see is half real, half candid. Follow your own role, ain't no dream that can be sold. Ain't as real as I've been told, gotta choose your own goal. The city never sleeps when we chasing our dreams, living up to the things that we need. The city never sleeps when we're chasing our dreams, living up to the paper we need. It's a hard knock life and we're trying to live it right, trying to stay woke to the creeps in the night. But the city never sleeps when we're chasing our dreams, living up to the paper we need. This song is dedicated to all my hustlers, people who are working hard, chasing their dreams. Don't settle to fit in with society. Do you, be you. Trying to stay woke to the creeps in the night. Paper we need. Creeps in the night. Chasing our dreams, living up. Thank you, thank you. That was short and sweet. Short and sweet. That's how I like to keep it. Okay, the next song, the last song. very, very personal as well, but a bit more vibey. And it's called Modern Day Slave. The name says it all.
That's our motto. We want freedom by any means necessary.
Educate your mind.
We want justice
by any means necessary.
We want equality by any means.
Let me tell you about the difference between a leader and a president. Look into the riches, show the views pretty evident. Looking back, man, nothing really changed, and we all just living like a modern day slave. Educate your mind on your history. They taken all our roots, it's a mystery. I know they fear the day that we find our identity with everything that relate to us mentally. Why every peacemaker be the face on the paper? What about Biko and what about Shabazz? What about Gaddafi and all of the rest? The system killed them all cause that educators best. Show the people conscious, deep-rooted content. Never wrote our books with the truth that they can't bend. Who can really tell the black man's story other than the man making a his story? Looking real way back in time. The system never wanted no blacks alive, but here we are today, same struggle that we face. We fight by any means, like Malcolm X would say,
and bring about the freedom of these people by
any means necessary. Let me tell you about the difference between a leader and a president. Look into their riches, show the views pretty evident. Looking back, man, nothing really changed, and we're all just living like a modern day slave. Let me tell you about the difference between a leader and a president. Look into their riches, show the views pretty evident. Looking back, man, nothing really changed, and we're all just living like a modern day slave. The world be looking like the book of Revelation, living in the prison story written in the ancient, stalking on my water like a tidal basin, thinking about war when we were first in placement. I could see the world repeating history all over again. Never have it easy when your skin ain't even blending in, and still we think it's cool to do whatever to fit in, when no one can renew all of the shoes that we've been in. Where do we begin? When the system is against us, all of the investors getting uppercuts. We be working up the cuts, we be making up the sales, they be making up the tails. How they make it up the scale? The dots are braille. Businessmen as presidents, don't they feel no penitence for all of the negligence of the people? Words empty like their promises. Life is a tell me what this karma is. Waiting for the day that we can say our say and no longer obey the opposition to dream. Acquisition is scheme, stack, you know what they feeding. We stay gleaming. Black don't crack, we break even. Black don't crack, we break even. You hear what I'm saying? We don't crack. We don't crack, people. Use your voice. Let me tell you about the difference between a leader and a president. Look into the rich and show the views pretty evident. Looking back, man, nothing really changed, and we all just living like a modern day slave. Let me tell you about the difference between a leader and a president. Look into the rich and show the views pretty evident. Looking back, man, nothing really changed, and we all just living like a modern day slave. But don't be a modern day slave. Even if we live in that way, you don't have to be. Choose your path. Thank you.
You rock, Tasha. Well done. We thoroughly enjoyed that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next week, Thursday, for Reimagining Our Narratives.